Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader Damien. Again, doing this video a bit later than I would have liked to. My countdown, comic book thoughts, super subjective little video. Um, because I'm just not getting enough time to read. My daughter was home sick with a minor stomach flu or something before the schools closed. So we've been locked in the house together for close to 7 days now, and there's just less time for me to read, less time for me to make videos. Uh, for some people, it's the opposite. They're locked in their homes. They're going to get more reading done, more binge watch more TV, clean up the house. But the time I have, because I'm essentially retired at this point, I'm the house husband, so to speak, and I'm doing some training for other things for myself. The time I have to myself is usually when my daughter's at school, and she hasn't been in school since last Monday. So, and now the schools have closed. A lot of people, it seems like right now they're just saying till the beginning of April, but everybody's assuming pretty soon they're going to extend that at least another month. So maybe eventually we'll get into a routine where I get more time to myself, but we'll see. And maybe my daughter and I will do a video together if we could organize ourselves in some way. It'll probably just be chaos, but that might be good. And I'll just say, for my own amateur health policy and economic policy, what the president or the Congress and the Senate and all our leaders should do is say, we are investing an enormous amount of money in making tests so that there'll eventually be plenty of tests for everyone who needs them in the entire United States. And that way we can get back to regular life and get our economy going again and everything like that. So that's just my thought. Rather than talk about propping up the stock market or propping up the payroll tax or giving people cash, which maybe they need to do, or whatever it is, who are going to be unemployed, all those good, important things. But to right the ship, they got to focus on that. Tests. We need tests. And with spending hundreds of billions of dollars on this crisis, certainly they should be able to do that. So sorry to force I needed to rant to somebody. So this past week, from comics from last Wednesday, it's currently Tuesday. Hopefully my comic book shop will be open tomorrow. All the restaurants are now closed too. So I don't know what the comic book shops are going to do or whether their comics will be delivered. But anyway, these are comics from last Wednesday, and I had 9 of them. They were all good. So I have the similar problem. They were all good. None of them blasted to the top. None of them were quite, what I call my peak comic book reading experiences, where, some weeks I'll have 3, even 4 comics at that level. Some weeks 1 or 2. But last week and this week, I've had none at that level, but none at the bad level either. So I feel kind of cruel putting the ones lower on the list, but it's my best approximation of which ones I just got the most pleasure out of in the moment of reading them. So I'm putting SpiderMan, Symbiote Spider-Man, Alien Reality number 4 by Peter David and Greg Land at number 9. And this was a decent comic book. It feels so dreamlike that maybe I don't like comics that feel like too much like dreams. A lot of this was inside somebody's mind. I don't know, Doctor Strange's mind, or the symbiote spider suit's mind, or inside the land of nightmare. I can't remember now. But it was pretty cool. There was some cool stuff. Yeah, it was eventually, anyway, inside the land of nightmare. And it was a bit of a hairy dog, what do they call it? A shaggy dog story, in the sense of there was no conflict with Nightmare once they got to Nightmare. So maybe that's also why it was a little lower on my enjoyment. It was a clever idea that maybe in the last few issues, a lot of what we've seen going on was not really Peter Parker functioning, but the intelligent suit having completely taken over but pretending to be Peter Parker. And I'm not, my Venom and symbiote spider suit knowledge is weak, and I'm not sure if that's kind of an idea that's been covered before. But I really like that idea. And I was not let down too much. Maybe I'm getting used to the Greg Land art to a degree, and maybe there just weren't too much. It's always a little, his women are always a little weird looking, like they literally walked out of a fashion shoot and are busy posing. But overall, Greg Land, I thought, back on this page, he did a good job with the story. Still, feeling he's not as comedic an artist as Peter David is the writer. But I've said that many times before. In at number 8 was Rye. And this has been something I've been enjoying a lot, but somehow my enjoyment is going down, and I'm not quite sure why. There was kind of a giant battle for this city. It kind of reminded me of like when there was big battle scenes in Road Warrior. In Road Warrior, the big battle scenes in Road Warrior. It kind of was akin to that, and it was pretty cool. But somehow, I just didn't feel as involved as I have earlier in Rye. Although there is some interesting stuff going on here about what Rye's ultimate goal is for himself and for Raijun, the sort of childlike robot that he works with. And I'd say over the course of these 5 issues, Raijun has become the most sympathetic character. So the revelations about Rye and Raijun were interesting and disturbing. Thor, oops, I have the wrong one. I read Thor number 4, but I seem to have Thor number 3 in here. In Thor number 4, that's hard to say. Thor number 4, there was a confrontation with Sif after this number 3's confrontation with Beta Ray Bill. And it seemed like both these issues actually were a bit, they were kind of fun seeing big heroes battle against each other, but it was in both issues kind of stretched out, and it seemed like filler before we get to our real story. And at the end of issue 4, there is a really disturbing, I wonder how I got 3 mixed up with 4 in my pile here. But there was a very disturbing moment with Galactus at the end of issue 4, and it makes Thor feel even more, can't think of a word. It's a fancy word, and that's why I can't think of it. It makes Thor seem even more like he's being put at a disadvantage morally, and are we going to come back from that moral precipice he's on, or gone over the edge of, in his alliance with Galactus? That is really interesting. I don't know if it's going to be addressed in the rest of the adventure. At first, I thought I wasn't going to stick with Thor, but I guess I have. I'm picking it up off the stands, not off the racks, not putting it on my pull list. Because there is still, even as I read this and enjoy this, there's a part of me that is, I'm sorry, I'm showing pictures from the wrong issue of Thor, but that is still a little tired of all this endless cosmic apocalypse, or universal apocalypse for the whole universe. On the opposite end of the spectrum, at number 6 is Batman's Grave. I had really been liking this series. It's starting to feel a little repetitive with all the number of fights. But just as I was thinking, well, I'm getting a little tired of these fights, Warren Ellis and his co-conspirator, Brian Hitch, give us this giant scene where he's about to have an even bigger fight, and then they just skip over it. So we see this scene where it looks like about 20 people with knives and swords are attacking him, and then we don't see the fight. And it's just, I guess, a day later or the next few hours later where Gordon and Batman are talking. They don't even refer to how that fight went. They're just getting on with the mystery. And I don't know if it felt like there were 3 or 4 pages that were just cut out of the story. I don't know if Ellis is losing his grip on the story or thinks he's doing something avant-garde, or this will make sense read in a trade. Maybe next issue we'll play back on what happened in that big ultimate page. This is a really cool cover. It looked like we were leading up to a scene like this, which we never got to, I guess. So anyway, it's getting kind of weird. It's getting or becoming an even weirder thing. And there were also sentences in here where I thought, did Warren Ellis mean to write that sentence that way? It doesn't quite match grammatically. And occasionally there were even sentences that just didn't have periods at the end of them, which I thought was strange. So is Warren Ellis losing his grip here? Is something going wrong? Or will we see it was all going right as we move on further into the story? I don't know. So, because I think Batman's Grave has been up higher on my lists than that before. So that was number 6. And number 5, so right in the middle of the pack, is this new comic from Jonathan Hickman and Image called Decorum. It's a really oversized issue for $1 more than your average comic. And it's full of the Jonathan Hickman design tricks, which are getting way over familiar to me anyway by now. And then it also has his big info dumps, which have become more and more common, I think, in his comics. I'm getting a message. I may have to. Okay, I'll just keep going for a little bit longer. This thing had incredible art. And it had some, like the first chapter, I didn't really get what was going on. I had something to do with all these different worlds, some of which are kind of chronostasis kind of places that are recreating other periods of history, I guess. And then we get the story of someone who is a messenger delivery girl, kind of in a forced labor kind of way, in the sense that she has to keep working to try to somehow get her relatives back from their cryosleep and cured of their plague. So they use plagues to economically control people, which is interesting with what we're going through right now. Not that anyone's doing that, but it can make you nervous. So it was hard to figure that out, though. It took quite a bit you had to read all the text and draw your own connections to what you were seeing of this character and what was going on with her. And then on this risky messenger assignment she's given, she ends up getting wrapped up in this assassin who's like the most polite assassin in the universe or whatever, but totally ruthless. And this issue ends with the assassin, after having killed all the criminals that she's been sent to kill. I mean, she's a mobster and they're mobsters. It's like one mob sending someone to kill another mob. Then the question is what's she going to do with the messenger girl? And we don't know yet. So this was both a thrilling and frustrating read. And most of all, I think I did not relate to or care for any of the characters. I mean, I think I should especially care for the girl who's the messenger, but somehow I didn't click with her. It might be me. It might be the way Hickman wrote her. There she is. But I might start clicking with her over time. So the real question in my mind is, do I wait for trades? I love getting these beautifully illustrated Hickman books in the deluxe size. I've got East of West in the deluxe size hardback, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I'm still waiting on Volume 3. The comic book finished up, and Volume 3 hasn't come out yet. So, and I don't see it listed for when it is going to come out. So my one worry is if I wait for these deluxe hardbacks, what if the final one never comes out? So maybe I want to get the comic book, or maybe I want to wait. I can't decide. It's full of fun science fiction stuff at a very kind of conceptually high level and complex level that is fun to kind of parse out and everything. But it doesn't have that grippiness for me that a a monthly comic should, so that I want to keep reading it in that format. Okay, in at number 4 for me is Harrow County, which was another good chapter in this. It feels like we're almost ready to move on to another story. It's called Tales from Harrow County, but it looks like we're sort of stringing from a semi-conclusion of one story into another story, perhaps. So I'm not as excited about this as I was before. Maybe I'm starting to take this art, which I think is really amazing, by what's her name? Naomi Franquiz. It's interesting that the lettering is done by Tyler Crook, the original artist, who is also the co-creator of this series. Anyway, it was a very cool issue. I'm happy to read that. And then at number 3, I put Captain Ginger, Season 2, Issue 2. And I really liked issue number 1 a lot. Issue 2 continues the story, and it was good, and I liked it. Part of me wished, it does the whole trick of the ships being destroyed. Everyone has to get on lifeboats and leave the ship. And part of me wanted a more cozy story where the ship stays intact and the crew stays together and we solve smaller mysteries than this giant conflict with the Lumen. But really, it's good. And so it looks like next issue, most of the crew anyway, some of them may have died in the conflict with the Lumen, these light-based creatures who don't seem to like anything based on Earth. Anyway, it looks like most of them will now be visiting this planet that has a small colony of dogs on it. So I can't wait to see how that works out. My only real complaint about Captain Ginger is fun script, really great science fiction cat art from June Brigman, but man, they need another colorist. This colorist is not doing it. There would be occasional panels that look good, but overall, this just doesn't seem like the right set of colors for this art or for this story. I feel like I have to read through the colors rather than the colors helping me read. Here's a page that's somewhat better. So both just aesthetically and reading wise, the colorist. Maybe it would be cruel to name the colorist, but it's not a colorist I've ever heard of before. So they need another colorist to get on that. Valiant Comics, because it's a shame, especially when the line artist is doing such a good job. Not a problem in my number 2 pick, the Immortal Hulk. I feel like this is getting back on track, number 32. I don't know if it can ever be as good as it was, in its initial maybe 15 or 20 issues. I think once it got off track a little, it's never going to be quite as good. But I really enjoy the concept here of this Zemu character, Zimnu, who's also called the Hulk. I remember him from Defenders comics I read as a kid, but he also appeared before the Marvel Age of Comics started in one of their monster magazines. And this is a very intense... So I love how he is able to change what everyone thinks reality is, and how it's changing the various personalities inside the Hulk. And is he changing the reality of the entire Earth just to get at the Hulk / Bruce Banner? That seems to be what the Hulk thinks anyway. So I really look forward to seeing how this is going to play out some more. And as I was sort of hinting, great colors, the art and colors that go well together. And they even had a few pages by guest artists that worked well instead of jumped you out. Like this is one of the other artists, Rodriguez, I believe. Let's see, I think the credit's here on the back page. Javier Rodriguez is colorist and pencil of the Zemnu sequences like these ones, and he does a good job too. So we'll see if this completely gets back on board or is still a wobbling ship that maybe just has sailed on too long. I mean, a 32 issue run is a long one by modern terms and a long one by any terms to keep up the really high level. Ironically, what I'm putting as my number one, really, I couldn't decide who should be my number one. Even if at moments I thought Decorum should be my number one. Then I decided, no, I had issues with my enjoyment of Decorum kind of faltering and struggling to read it, even though other parts of it were really cool. So my number one is issue number 2 of Adler by Lavi Tildor and Paul McCarthy. Interesting that there's no women working on this, since it is all, there's no women at all working on this. It's all about female pulp characters from either, I guess it takes place in the early 20th century, but some of these are characters from before the 20th century. And others that are kind of parallels with stuff a little later than the turn of the century, like Little Orphan Annie. I really don't, the art is okay. I really don't like the coloring on this one, but I'm not a big fan of the art either. That's their version of Little Orphan Annie. But it's just so much fun, and I was totally shocked when they offed who I thought was the major villain. So someone else is actually the major villain. I guess I won't tell you that for the few of you who are actually reading Adler. And I don't know. This character who's a great detective and an opera singer and an actress, and we've got Aisha, who is She from the H. Rider Haggard novel She. We've got Jane Eyre as kind of a Florence Nightingale character. There's just all kinds of interesting elements here, and I find them all moving along nicely and keeping me intrigued. It's just fun pulp, and it's my number one comic because I had the most fun reading it, despite wishing the art was different. But I've talked about that the last time I talked about this comic. Okay, so I will be back soon. I think I'll try to find some time. I've got all kinds of stuff that I've hauled over the past month or two that I still haven't shown, and I have fun doing the haul videos, and it seems like enough people like them that it's also an excuse to do more of them. So I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.